December 15, 1943, Bougainville Island, 4:30 in the morning. The jungle was silent, wrapped in darkness. The air was heavy with humidity, every breath thick, every movement weighed down by mud and fear. Somewhere beyond the trees, the sea whispered against the black sands of Empress Augusta Bay. In the foxholes, U.S. Marines waited. Their uniforms were damp, their rifles slick with sweat and rain. They knew the enemy was coming. They just didn't know when. Then, suddenly it began. From the tree line erupted a sound that sent a chill down every spine. Voices, hundreds of them, rising together in a furious cry. Tenno Hika bands, I bands, I bands, I. The Japanese infantry was charging. But this time, the defenders would answer with a weapon the Japanese had never imagined. A weapon that would shatter their charge and echo through the night with terrifying force. The Winchester Model 12 trench gun. Perfect weapon for the Pacific, the Model 12 was no ordinary shotgun. It was a pump-action 12, gauge designed for war. It carried 6 shells in its magazine, each one packed with 9 deadly pellets of double-aught buckshot. At close range, each blast hit like 9 rifle bullets striking all at once. But the shotgun had one feature that made it utterly devastating: slam fire. By holding the trigger and pumping the action, a Marine could fire as fast as he could rack the slide. Boom, pump, boom, pump. In seconds, the gun could empty its magazine in a storm of thunderous blasts. This was not theory. This was not training. Tonight, on Bougainville, slam fire would prove itself in the most brutal way possible. Bougainville, a jungle battlefield. The Battle of Bougainville was part of the Allied campaign to isolate the Japanese stronghold of Rabaul. The Americans had landed in November and dug in along the perimeter near the Piva Forks. It was a miserable front. The jungle closed in on every side. Visibility was measured in feet. Every shadow could hide a Japanese soldier. Every night brought the threat of infiltration or sudden attack. Here, rifles were often too long, too slow. Machine guns were powerful but unwieldy in close brush. What the Marines needed was something fast, brutal, and capable of breaking a charge in seconds. The trench gun was exactly that. The charge, the Japanese 23rd Infantry Regiment moved in silence until the final moment. Then the night erupted in their war cry. Hundreds of men surged forward, swords gleaming, bayonets fixed, grenades clutched in their fists. The Marines opened fire. Machine guns chattered, rifles cracked, grenades burst. But mixed in with that deadly orchestra was a deeper, more terrifying sound: the booming blast of the Winchester trench gun. Slam fire unleashed. Imagine standing in a foxhole, your heart pounding as silhouettes rush toward you. You shoulder the shotgun, you press the trigger, hold it down, and pump. Each motion sends another thunderous blast into the darkness. 6 shots in seconds, each shot scattering 9 pellets of buckshot across the charging enemy. Entire groups of attackers vanish in the flashes of fire. One Marine later said it was like cutting grass with a scythe. Another called it a portable machine gun. To the men in those foxholes, the trench gun was the difference between life and death. The shock on the Japanese infantry had trained for close combat. They expected to meet bayonets and rifle fire at the edge of the American line. But what they ran into was something far more terrible. The sound alone was shocking. Deep, booming blasts, faster than any rifle, louder than any submachine gun. Survivors spoke of walls of fire and metal tearing through their ranks. Captured reports later described the Americans using short repeating guns that spread bullets like the wind. Japanese officers admitted they had no countermeasure. Their Arisaka rifles were too slow. Their submachine guns were scarce. Against slam fire, sheer bravery became suicide. Marines who carried shotguns, not every Marine had a trench gun, but those who did became anchors in the defense. They were placed where the line was most vulnerable. They were the ones who led cave-clearing patrols, who entered bunkers first, who stood ready when the night erupted with Banzai charges. Some fixed bayonets to their shotguns, turning them into brutal spears. Others carried brass, cased shells to resist the jungle's relentless damp. And when the darkness came alive with shouting enemies, these Marines held their ground, pumping their weapons in deadly rhythm, keeping the line intact. Dawn on Bougainville. When the sun rose, the jungle was still. Outside the marine perimeter lay hundreds of Japanese bodies. The charge had been broken, the Banzai cry silenced. The Marines were shaken but alive. They knew what had saved them. The trench guns had torn holes in the charge that no rifle alone could have stopped. The slam fire had turned desperate moments into decisive victories. For the Japanese, the lesson was brutal. Their tactics, their bravery, their willingness to die, it all crumbled in the face of buckshot unleashed at point-blank range. The legacy of that night word spread quickly through the division. The Winchester trench gun was no longer just another weapon, it was a lifeline. The Marines joked it was like carrying a cannon in your hands. The Japanese feared it, dreading the sudden thunder of slam fire cutting through their ranks. That night on Bougainville became one of many where the trench gun proved its worth. Again and again across the Pacific, it would meet charges, clear caves, and hold lines in the darkest hours. The Japanese infantry had never imagined they would face such a weapon. But by the end of the war, they would know its name, and they would remember the roar of the Winchester trench gun slamming through their lines.